Good evening, scholars, or I should say good morning. My name is Curtis Rembert, and I'm here to give my response speech to the editorial titled A Clear Benefit in a Higher Minimum Wage. Now, let me ask the class, how many of y'all are in favor of a rise in the minimum wage from 7.25 to 10.25? Now, I should see everyone's hand up because I know there's been a point in your life where you complained about the minimum wage or how much money you're making. And if that's not you, that's fine. But me personally, I do it every day. And it's not just me, it's a universal theme amongst workers all across the US. And with that being said, I'd like to open up with a quote which states that proposals to increase the minimum wage are politically popular because they are widely seen as an effective way to help the working poor. Now, this is a great tactic to use politically, but once you dig beneath the surface, you'll see that that's not necessarily the case. That you can't bring people out of poverty just by raising the minimum wage. Now, the main claim in the editorial was that more than 16 million low wage workers now making as little as 7.25 an hour would directly benefit from the increase, boosting them out of poverty. Now, this was a claim of policy. Now, the claim is supported with positive evidence provided by the Congressional Budget Office. However, the editorial only references the positives provided by the provided by the Budget Office, and it fails to fully recognize the negative effects. Now, my main claim was that raising the minimum wage would be beneficial to some initially, but there could be some negative effects long term. Now, my first subclaim was that more teenagers would drop out of school due to the increase in minimum wage. And I have a quote from the journal Labor of Research. And Newmark and Washer, they examined the effects of minimum wage increase on a teenager's decision to remain in school. Now, generally, they found that following an increase in minimum wage, teenagers are more likely to move from being enrolled in school to working full time. Now, I feel as if the dropout rate amongst minorities would skyrocket simply because a lot of minorities I know only go to school because their parents tell them to go to school, and that's the only way they'll have a fair chance at getting a decent job. And they won't have to work for minimum wage. But if you raise the minimum wage from 7 to 10.25, then I feel as if a lot of my friends or a lot of minorities would bypass all the extra stuff of school and would rather start making money. Now, my next subclaim was that it would be slow job growth for teenagers. And in the same article, they also found that teens who were employed and not enrolled in school, they were more likely to be unemployed following the increase in minimum wage, simply because firms will substitute the high-skilled teams for the low-skilled teams, etc., etc. Now, which makes complete sense. I mean, just look at it this way. Would you hire a teenager, a 16-year-old on his first job? Would you hire him for, what, $12 an hour plus payroll taxes? No, you wouldn't. And I got this quote from a trade magazine. Now, my last point is that raising the minimum wage won't necessarily bring people out of poverty. And I have a quote about the neoclassical theory, which suggests that the minimum wage increase reduces demand for low-skilled labor, thus reducing the employment and hours worked. Now, most of the people in poverty are low-skilled workers. So if the minimum wage is increased and low-skilled workers are put out of work or they're replaced by high-skilled workers, how is it going to boost them out of poverty? It's not. So I feel as if the editorial failed to fully recognize the whole situation. Now, in conclusion, the New York Times, they didn't fully analyze the topic as a whole. They only looked at the positives and not the negatives. And I feel as if more likely than not, the minimum wage increase will have a negative effect on the economy as a whole for a period of time.